Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished speakers, honored guests. Thank you for being here. I don't know how you heard about this event, but I heard about this event while I was in Korea. Peter told me about this event and I immediately said, yes, I would like to come. I live in the United States and I work at the UN over there since 1996, so I'm an old man. That's why I cover my head, otherwise you will see a lot of white hair there. So first of all, I really want to congratulate the people of Ethiopia and Eritrea for this historical peace agreement. And I never expected in my lifetime that this will happen, but it did happen. And I want also to congratulate Hamdan and Peter for the incredible work you've been doing here. I'm the Vice President for Universal Peace Federation International, which is headquartered in New York. Also, I work with NGO. I'm a chairman for the World Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, which we have about 32,000 NGO in this association, a database. I'm not supposed to be speaking because I am supposed to be kind of moderating this session, which I came here to learn, actually, as I mentioned to you, but I found myself sitting here, thanks to Peter, and he asked me to moderate the session. So here I am. Again, I'm grateful and thankful for this opportunity, and I really learned from the first session. But what I learned more, not about the past, but the desire to do something in the future is the desire to follow up. That's the most important things. We could write resolutions, but what are we gonna do? That's which is important. So please, if you are engaged in any way in this peace process, please do something about it. Don't come here and go out and say, oh, it's not nice. Do something. I'm not going to talk bad about the UN, but I would say one thing. We have a lot of resolutions from the Security Council, but many of them are just basically ink on paper. There is no follow-up with them. So I'm so glad to be here again. And you know, this building, I was surprised. Peter has been asking me to come here for many, many years, and I keep saying, well, but I was really impressed. You have a building actually better than the United Nations headquarters. Yeah, I'm serious. It's very nice. Peter, can you go to New York and I stay here? Anyhow, let us start this continuation of this, I could call it, again, a historical event to get acquainted more, understand more, and hopefully our speakers will shed light about what to do in the future. So our first speaker is not here. So we'll go to the second speaker. And the second speaker, he's here. Dr. Abdalla Sharief is the president of UN Correspondents Association in Vienna. You have the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you. I was given the choice to speak in Arabic or English, so I chose Arabic language because I never did it before. أصحاب السعادة السيدات والسادة
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and I address myself especially to those who have come from outside Austria. I would like to welcome you and greet you in the name of the Horn of Africa News Agency, HORNA, and the United Nations Correspondents Association in Vienna, UNCAP. I am honored to chair both of these associations. I also extend my gratitude to the permanent mission of Eritrea for organizing this conference. Through our media campaigns and over more than a quarter century, we have come to know each other, come as Africans to know Europe, European technology, the United Nations, UN abilities, as well as Africa and its needs. And we have attempted to employ our knowledge and our modest abilities in the service of all Africans and of the Horn of Africa especially. To that end, we cooperated with international organizations such as UNIDO, the International Atomic Energy Agency, OPEC, and the United Nations Information Service. And we also cooperated with neighboring countries to Austria and European organizations such as the UPF, the Universal Peace Federation, and the Bayern Bund, and ESEXA, Environmental Concepts Exchange Association, who are all participating in this conference and have submitted a paper in this context. As media professionals, we are greatly concerned with issues of development and peace, and we participate in institution building and in encouraging initiatives that serve peace and development, including, for example, our participation in today's event and similar other events in past years. Our main hope and aspiration is to be able to provide an opportunity for media professionals from the Horn of Africa, particularly the young among them, to come to this building, the VIC, to be trained or to receive training on covering VIC activities within a specific period through a project that we at UNCAV, the United Nations Correspondent Association in Vienna, would adopt in cooperation with the United Nations Information Service, UNIDO, and the IAEA. This proposal, this suggestion, I would like to add to the proposal of the Ambassador of Sudan to hold a cultural event combining or involving all the states of the Horn of Africa in the near future, and we hope that that project would be achieved. Thank you for your attention.
Shukran, Dr. Sharief. This is another thing I'm impressed about here in this country, in this place. You know, at the UN, they give the speaker at the General Assembly 7 minutes. And after 7 minutes, everybody start leaving the room, basically. So, but I am so impressed. I gave you 7 minutes and you didn't take them. I had a discount. Thank you. In Arabic, they say, خير الكلام ما قل ودل. The best speech is short and sweet and useful. Media is so important, as we all know. We hear a lot about fake media, and media is instrumental in educating people if the media is moral enough and good enough. So I really applaud you. I know he's been doing a lot of work here. And he even went to Sudan. I told him to speak about Sudan. He said, no, I'm speaking about it some other time. He's from Sudan, by the way. Me too, I am from Sudan. So the Sudanese are taking over. Watch out. Okay, thank you, Dr. Sharief. Our next speaker is here, right? Yeah, he's here, good. Captain Simon Yohannes Neguse. He is the head of the police laboratory, and he's going to speak about the crimes in Eritrea. You have the floor, sir. I think he has a PowerPoint also.
Okay, thank you very much. My presentation, I am, by the way, head of the Forensic Laboratory of Eritrea, and I have been working in the police force for the last 20 and more years. So my topic was basically about the crime situation of Eritrea, because for various reasons I will be telling you that. But before that, I am more than happy to just say some words about the previous question. About what is happening in Eritrea after all the peace process and the agreement is going on. Actually, I'm not in the right position to answer that, but since I came from Eritrea recently, a week ago, I can say some words about it. I think we have to understand the context. We have been in a very difficult situation for the last 20 and more years. You remember the war broke out in 1998, and it took 2 years up to 2000. The peace agreement was signed in 2003, and the virtual elimination was conducted in 2007. But later on in 2009, there was a sanction in the country. Then you can imagine, within 20 years, in no peace, no war situation, how many resources has the country devoted to? When everything is focused in the national security, there is an exhaustion of a lot of resources. I can see it from inside. You just lose a lot of resources, a lot of manpower, in terms of money, in terms of economy. It was a very troublesome situation. But now peace is coming, and the peace agreement between us and Ethiopia has just come into force from last July in 2018. We have been just 8 months through the peace situation, and there will be a number of dynamics. I am more than confident that there are a lot of internal process to change the internal dynamics. But we will certainly need certain time. We will need a lot of time, we will need a lot of external assistance, because the focus was somewhere else. Now we will focus in terms of whatever we can go with our world. You can take a simple example of the military conscription, the national service. If you plan to demobilize 100,000 youngsters, for instance, who have been in the military, just receiving their certain amount of money, would you get some jobs for them immediately? Would that be possible? This can never be possible, because we were in trouble actually. So the situation is a bit complex. We have to weigh a number of considerations and parameters. But I would like to assure you that a lot of things will change with time, because we have the peace with us now. and we hope it will be sustainable, is of course in a dynamic process. The general peace and agreement has been conducted, but we will need a number of things in implementing them. Regional integration is not an easy issue. You have to look into a number of factors as well. So I assure you that we will be changing with time, as we have done before. And please be assured things will be better in the future. Thank you very much. My main concern is about the crime situation in Eritrea. As you see in the topic, and as you have been following some of our presenters from the side of European Union, we are most of the time misunderstood, as if there is a lot of corruption in the country, as if there is a lot of homicide rates in the country, as if a lot of things. So that's why the organizers felt just saying something about the crime situation of the country is important, because, I don't know, it's good to see it from inside out rather than outside in. So that's why I'm going to take you through some slides. I hope I will be able to convey something about the country. It's of course, high prevalence of crime has been recognized now as one of the major obstacles in national development in the world. There could be other arguments, but it's generally recognized. If crime prevails in a country, national development will be hindered or something like that. It is therefore important to analyze crime vis-a-vis national development. That's why I will be taking you to some slides of the recorded crimes that we have in the last 20 years. I will select just the serious crimes, the homicide rate, and some topics about crime for today. The paper was presented in an international conference in my country, and these are very few slides of that paper. Okay, the serious crimes are homicide, rape, kidnapping, assault, robbery, burglary, motor vehicle theft, and willful injury. These are internationally reported crimes because they affect a lot of dynamics in the quality of life, in investment, and whatever. So the slide in front of you is the reported crime of homicide, rape, kidnapping, and assault. As you can see, the average count that we have in terms of homicide is 52 per year. In terms of rate, when divided to 3.7 population, per 100,000 is 1.4. In terms of rape, is 1.9. In terms of kidnapping, we don't even have that in our reporting matrix because it doesn't exist in Eritrea. In terms of assault, this is just physical fighting. It is this much. We are a little bit high in that, but we are not as high as the other countries. You can see from the right side, the highest rate is in countries like Honduras, Venezuela, which is about 90 or above. Meaning if you have 90 rate and if you have 10 million population, it means you have 9,000 people killed. You have to translate that in that manner because this is the rate. In our case, it's 1.4, but in the case of Honduras, for instance, it's 90. Okay, this is willful injury, motor vehicle theft, robbery, and burglary. In terms of willful injury, we just have 374 in terms of counts as average. In terms of rate, it is 10. In terms of motor vehicle theft in my country is just for joyriding and just stealing something from the vehicle itself. Otherwise, We don't have a single vehicle theft, stolen, but which is not recovered, meaning it's almost to zero. In terms of robberies, this is the rate that we have, 183. In terms of count, burglary is this much. If you consider the highest rate in Israel, for instance, is 404 per day, but in our case, it's 323 per year. What happened in that country for 1 year, one day happens in 1 year in my country, it means. So we can summarize this. The rates of homicide, 1.4, and other violent crimes, most of them in the lowest quartile one, through the statistics of the NODC, is very low. And we can obviously conclude that the impact of their impact in terms of economy is very low. And the low prevalence of crime was achieved through very little resources. We didn't deploy much resources in it, but it happens through the cooperation of the people and the culture, many things. Okay, the issue is then, is this the case in the international crime statistics that you see in the internet? This is the main concern because we have to just understand each other. This report, for instance, in 2002, an individual researcher had reached that the rate of homicide that I have told you 1.4 is 7.6. In terms of this report in 2012, it was 7.8. It was divided for 6 million rather than 3.7 million, the official census. Had it been divided for 3.7, it could have been 12.8. But in 2008, also it was 17.5. In terms of count, 879 people killed in a single year, it means, through homicide. This can only happen in my country in 17 years, through the calculations that we conducted. So you can see a lot of miscalculations in this case. We don't know what underreporting is. We don't underreport crime, and the country is small. The population, as you know, is very cohesive. So we know the numbers. We can never miss any report of homicide crime. So this is very much exaggerated. Why it was exaggerated, I don't know. We were going to certain researches, and the methodology used was regression modeling. There is a kind of calculation in terms of crime. What they do is, for instance, if infant mortality rate in a country is high, if the Gini index coefficient, as His Excellency Ambassador Andreas was explaining, is high, a percentage of urban population aged 15 to 30, adolescent birth rate, HIV prevalence, etc., religious fractionalization, and corruption. If these coefficients are higher in a country, obviously they calculate that the crime rate of homicide is high. That's why they made certain mistakes. But I believe you have to see the internal dynamics of the country. You have to go into the culture. You have to take a number of other parameters rather than just calculating the crime rate through this. That was the case. So there is a big difference between the internal report and the outside report, and the methodology needs certain ratification in my case. I will take you to some slides in terms of corruption. As you know, corruption cannot be understood or studied based on such reports, but it can give you some indication. The cases that we have within the 22 years is we had 3,449 suspects, for instance. The institution, as you see, are these ones. Most of the individuals involved in corruption were businessmen. These are the general reports that we have for 22 years. World Bank had conducted a survey in Eritrea in terms of corruption in 2009, and you can see the results. For instance, percentage of firms expected to give gifts in meetings with a tax inspector, they found it to be 0. It means they didn't pay any gifts to inspectors. The other firms expected to give gifts to secure government contract, it is still 0. Firms expected to give gifts to get construction and whatever. They found that to be 0 in terms of the survey they conducted. An individual by the name Dr. Yohannes conducted a certain survey in 2002, and how he found it to be, in terms of the interviews he conducted, the individuals who voted for prevalent are 11%, moderate 24%, and minimal, more of them said it is minimal. In summary, therefore, the assets involved in the corruption cases that we have are most of the time small. Position of the suspects in majority of cases businessmen of low-ranking officials. Level of organization is very important in terms of corruption, because if there is certain organization in conducting the crime, it will be very difficult to solve that. But in our case, the organization that we see is very minimal. The type of corruption that we have is facilitation payment and embezzlement. No collusion and no extortion are visible, and we don't see corruption at ground level. But is this the case in the international reports again? This is the main issue. And you can see the Transparency International report in 2004, 2005, and up to last year. Okay, we were doing a little bit okay in 2004. In accordance to the report, we were just 102 in terms of rank of the countries, but you can see the deterioration throughout the years. In 2014, for instance, we were 166 out of 175 countries. This means we were one of the 10 most corrupt countries in the world. And we were, in fact, in the media. Even David Cameron, the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, expressed it in an open meeting. In the world today, it's not Nigeria and Bangladesh that we know before are the most corrupt countries in the world. Rather, it is Afghanistan, Syria, North Korea, and Eritrea are the most corrupt nations in the world. And then this makes you a little bit upset. You know what is happening inside, and when something goes wrong outside, it will affect us a lot in terms of investment, in terms of tourism.
Pardon me to interrupt you.
Okay, I am done. So even last year it was a little bit better, but this year is a bit better again. We hope it will increase to be better. Transparency International doesn't conduct the survey itself. It bases on other surveys. The institutions you can see in the left, I will not take much time. Some of them gave us 0 out of 100, which is very staggering situation. The methodology again is survey, but I don't know a single institution coming to the country and conducting certain surveys. So it is an estimation again. If you are considered as a bad guy, I think everything bad is just given to you again. So in terms of other serious crimes, illicit drug trafficking is minimal, firearms trafficking is not almost there, organized crime is non-existent, terrorism, no major terrorism, cybercrime. The only troublesome that we had was trafficking in human being, and it remains an issue still.
Captain Simon,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but
Yeah.
I came from
Thank
New
you.
York,
Thank
and
you.
sometimes when people don't stop, you know what we do?
Yeah.
We call the police.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, fortunately enough, I am the police myself. But anyway, thank you. This is the last slide. Anyway, this means we need international intervention and assistance, at least to maintain the internal conditions that we have. But the situation is this, by the way. And thank you very much for your question.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We are gathering here today to celebrate the historic peace accord signed by the head of state, Ethiopia and Eritrea, on the 9th of July 2018, ending the state of war between the two nations. This declaration indeed will inspire the Horn of African countries, African as a continent, and the whole world to look ahead and aim for the next step for this peace initiative. This gathering here today is one of the foundation stones for the peace initiative. On behalf of Awethu, the African Social Club in the VIC, our umbrella organization for Africans and Friends of Africa, I would like to mention that with peace comes development. With the strategic location of the Horn of Africa and its massive potentials, development of the region should be of the paramount importance. Development is a very broad term. We are urging the presenters and speakers to identify key elements that will drive socio-economics development of this region, both human resources and capital development. One of Africa's biggest resources today is our youthful population. Decisive efforts must be made to harness these resources by training the youth and ensuring their contribution to the socio-economic development of the region. I dare to say development, sustained peace. Allow me, on behalf of Awethu, to congratulate the organizers of the success of this conference. Allow me to show my respect, praise, and compliment the good job you are doing. I take this opportunity to invite you all, Africans and Friends of Africa, to join Awethu. In the past years, Awethu, in conjunction with the staff councils and staff unions in the Vienna-based organizations, come up with the Vienna initiatives against Ebola in the VIC. The campaign was raise awareness about the scourge of Ebola and to make our contribution through the Doctors Without Borders, MSF. The campaign was resounding, success, and our immense contribution had been publicly acknowledged by Doctors Without Borders. We have been embarking on numerous of developmental programs within the region. Finally, 2 points. The first one is Awethu would like to extend condolences to the families of those who lost their loved ones in the recent Ethiopian Airlines crash, as well as the UN family at large, the loss of 21 workers. May their souls rest in peace. And the second point of my final speech here, I would like to take the liberty to concur with the proposal of the East African event. We as staff members in the UN here, we have the club and we have the authority to organize big events here as well. So the Sudanese ambassador has offered the East African event. UNCAV also, they seconded, and we are stepping in as well, and we are lending our hands for any help and support for that event, whatever the shape it may take. So if you want to do it outside the VIC, we will be there. If you want to do it inside the VIC, we'll help and support. And also would like to ask young, old man and woman, once this event is out, to come and support. Not support by presence, but also support in organization and ideas. I wish you a great celebration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As they say, there is no development without peace, and there is no peace without development. I'm very happy that you mentioned the youth also. And I do recommend next time when we have this panel is to bring a youth on to speak, because the youth need a place at the table, not just old people like me. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, who was not here, but we are very happy and glad that he came, is Dr. Abdalla, is Dr. Shawkat Abdelrazik. صح؟ شوكت عبد الرازق ومن السودان. He's from the Sudan also.
Kenya.
He's from Kenya. They corrected me. You're from Kenya? Really? You look Sudanese. Can you take you as a Sudanese? He's a director for African Technical Cooperation Department, International Atomic Energy Association. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I'm told I have about 7-8 minutes, so I will not go into details, but let me start from where the chairman left, that I look like a Sudanese, and then I look like a Kenyan, and sometimes they tell me probably a bit of an Egyptian. So it befits my position as the director for Africa, so I'm an African, yeah, to make it easy. Really, let me take this opportunity once again to commend and congratulate all the organizers. I know Hamdan, His Excellency the Ambassador Mohammed from Djibouti, and others as well have been behind all this, and really mine is to commend the excellent work that you're doing. I've just come back from Arusha. I'm from Nairobi, and I was in Arusha, and for your information, my condolences as well, because when that flight crashed, I was at the launch in Addis, and it was after that, actually I was on the runway when they announced that Ethiopian airline had crashed, but we had no information. I was flying to Kilimanjaro. So our heartfelt condolences, Mr. Chairman. I hope you're not adding those into my minutes. Condolences to the families and friends. I knew quite a number of them. One was the managing director of the Tamarin. If you've been to Kenya, Tamarin is one of the top-notch seafood restaurant. He also was in that plane. Another friend that I knew was the Kenya Football Federation Secretary General Hussein, as well, was in that plane as well. But they went before us. We are all in the same path. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala place them in paradise, inshallah. Coming back to the point this afternoon, perspective of sustainable peace development. I come from the IAEA, and our work is really to promote atom for peace and development. So you can see your theme actually fits into what we are doing. And I also want to say that, as has been said by other speakers, if you're looking at development, you must be able to have peace. It's really a very basic, fundamental thing that if you have no peace, then the development is not going to be there. I must say that I've also been privileged. I have traveled. I've been to Sudan. Recently, I was with His Excellency, the President of Eritrea. We had 1 hour discussion on the issues of peace and development using nuclear science technology. I was privileged. I knew Ahmed Abiy, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, when he was the Minister of Science Technology. And every time we talk about development, I always emphasize, if you want to develop, then you need also to embrace peace. And if you want to develop, embrace science, technology, and innovation. Nuclear science technology, IEA sometimes is misunderstood. Whenever we speak about IEA, people look at us as nuclear watchdog. But this afternoon, for 2-3 minutes, I want to share with you some of the other developmental issues that we address. The IEA program contributes directly to 9 of the SDGs. And indirectly, we've actually touched all the SDGs, but directly 9 of them. From where I sit in Africa, food and agriculture is a priority there. Quite a number of countries, in fact, we spend about 31% of the budget towards food and agriculture. Just to give you an example, I came back from Zanzibar. All right, Tanzania, I went to Zanzibar. Zanzibar, we've helped them to develop a rice variety that can be able to produce 7 tons per hectare from 4 tons using nuclear technology. This is what nuclear technology can do. We are able to produce a variety of maize, wheat, barley using breeding mutation that can be able to withstand salinity, that can be able to withstand drought, all right? And we can also be able to use the same technology to understand the mycotoxins and aflatoxins and be able to have, in terms of food safety measures in terms of food and agriculture. Health, again, for your information, about 20 countries in Africa or slightly plus, do not have a basic radiotherapy services. I have 45 countries in Africa that I'm in charge of, and they do not have these basic equipment. You see quite a number of Africans suffering from cancer. It is estimated by 2030 we're going to have about 1.4 million cases. So it's something that really needs to be addressed when you're looking at development as well. And in Africa, we are helping the member states, when they set up the radiotherapy center in capacity building and providing them with technical backstopping. So this is another area that there's a huge potential in the Horn of Africa that we can be able to use nuclear science and technology in health and nutrition. This Horn of Africa is also faced with challenge of water. And that's the beauty now with the IEA technology. We can use isotope hydrology. We can go deep underground and be able to tell you where is the water, what is the quality of water, what is the quantity of water, what is the dating of water, and what are the replenishment points of these waters, and what actually affects or pollute this water. So this is, again, the beauty of nuclear science and technology. So really, we would like to associate ourselves with you. We would like to associate with the peace accord that has been signed there and be able to see how we can be able to develop. Ethiopia is a member of the IEA. Somalia is yet to become a member. Eritrea is a member. Sudan is a member. Djibouti is a member. So we are also trying to reach out to other members of Africa. At the moment, I have 45 out of 54, 55. And we would like to see others who can also be able to come on board. My last message is that we do not need to reinvent the wheel. There are so many good practices in Africa that we can be able to learn and mentor each other. And I think the bloc in the Horn of Africa, there are about 150, 160 million people. There's a lot of development, for example, that has going on in Sudan, in Ethiopia. We can be able to assist there by coming in through what we call the triangular approach. You have 2 countries working together, and the agency comes in and providing the technical backstopping. So once again, really, this is an excellent initiative that you're doing, complementing, building synergies in terms of peace, and be able to develop as a bloc so that you can be more competitive within the continent of Africa and beyond. Many thanks for your time, and I'll be looking forward to the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdulrazak, for this presentation. Our last speaker is the Secretary General of the Universal Peace Federation Europe, Mr. Jacques Marion. You have the floor, sir.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here again. I was here not so long ago and spoke about Africa, and I'm happy to speak about the Horn of Africa, although I have never been to this part of the country, of this continent. And I really believe this is a time for Africa, and as I mentioned last time, I feel Africa has a lot even to teach Europe. But this is not really my topic now. I'll give this back to you. I think we haven't seen a map, so I just put a map so that you can look at it. I saw in last weeks The Economist this interesting title, "The New Scramble for Africa," but most interesting with the subtitle, "And How Africans Could Win It." And so I just took one excerpt from this text. From 2010 to 2016, more than 320 embassies were opened in Africa, probably the biggest embassy building boom anywhere ever. I think this illustrates that beyond the times of dependence and the times of independence, we are moving towards the time of interdependence and mutual prosperity. And I think that this is the topic that I really want to share a little bit. I will share about some of the projects that UPF is doing in Africa. We have some foundation and some contacts in the Horn of Africa. We have peace ambassadors and so on, not as many as in other parts of the continent. And so I want to share about some of the projects we have done recently in Africa, particularly since last year. But before that, still, I want to share a little bit about the vision of UPF. Although I shared a little bit last time, I think it's important because it explains some of the activities that we are doing. When we talk about sustainable peace and development, it can be realized on the foundation of interdependence, mutual prosperity, but also it needs to be based on universal principles. If we want to be sustainable development, sustainable peace, we believe strongly it has to be based on universal principles and spiritual values. In other words, it needs to be based on human development. And this is one of the very important aspects of our work. And so we consider religion is a very important because they have guided us, and they have make a foundation for morality. And I think in the Horn of Africa, of course, Islam, Judaism, Christianity have had very important history, and I think they will have still an important role to play. So I think it's important to speak also about the role of religion. One of the key important teachings of religion is that the key for the development or stable or sustainable human development is the unity of mind and body, or the unity of words and deeds. And by extension, in UPF, we like to say that sustainable political development, economic development, needs to be based on spiritual values. In other words, religious values are ingrained in the minds and hearts of individuals, and usually people's affiliation to religion is stronger than political affiliation. So in UPF, we very much emphasize the importance of collaboration between religious leaders and spiritual, moral leaders and political leaders, on the other hand, and in a relationship which is similar to what we call the mind and the body, in a sense. This explains one of the important projects that UPF has developed as a founding project, what we call the Interreligious Council at the United Nations, where we propose to have leaders in the realm, a committee or a council of leaders in the realm of religion and education who complement the work of leaders in the Security Council or other leaders of the United Nations who are more focusing on their own interest. So this pattern of governance, we believe, is a very important and can be adapted also elsewhere. Of course, when we talk about religion, there is also a dark side, in a sense, in the history of religion, because it has been very much also the source of conflict, and religious leaders pretend to have the exclusive path to salvation, to put forth their dogmas as absolute truth, and so on. So one of the important activity of UPF is interreligious dialogue and cooperation. And we believe that in order for religions today, in these global eras, in order for them to come and work together, they need to take up this challenge to go together, work together beyond their own dogmas, and truly go to the root of their scriptures, the root of their founders' teaching, and focus on the core values and ethical principles which they share in common. To say it briefly, we would say that these core values, whether we call them love, benevolence, compassion, mercy, and so on, are all founded on one fundamental principle, which is living for the sake of others. This means how to balance the concern for the self and the concern for others. And in other words, it means how to develop that kind of maturity of heart by which we can live for the sake of others by developing ourselves. And I think this is one of the most important core values that even though we speak about political development, about economic development, it all comes down to this balance and maturity of the human being. Now, the primary place, as we always emphasize, for the education of heart is the family. And where we go through 4 realms of human development: the heart of a child, the heart of siblings, the conjugal heart, the parental heart, finally, which is the highest expression, the most mature expression of altruistic love. And so in a healthy home, this process is a training from self-centeredness to selflessness, where we learn how to balance the private and the public purposes, the claim for rights, and the sense of responsibility. All of these, which are very important principles of good governance. And so we consider the family as very important because it is the place where we, in a healthy family, let's say, we learn how to develop that kind of maturity of heart by which we can then, bring the society into development. When we look at people who have made a major difference in a century of conflict, last century was a century of conflict, the people who made such a deep, important foundation of change and peace building were people who had this kind of parental heart. I mentioned a few of them, and Mandela was one of the, in a sense, a very impressive person, because he was able to go beyond his own self-interest, but also the interest of his own people, in order to build up that nation, South Africa, beyond the self-interest, beyond ethnic interest, and truly seeing the higher purpose. So we see much of our work is supporting or promoting family values, and as I will mention, in our work in Africa too. And in support of this, I can also quote this quote from Monsignor Gallagher, who used to be the secretary of the Vatican Secretary for Relations with the States, and who said the family is the main agent of sustainable development, the model for solidarity among nations. I'm rushing because I was pressured by my friend Taj that I have to finish within 7 minutes. So that's why I want to go to the projects quickly. We had, last year, we had important summits in Africa, in Dakar, in Senegal, with President Macky Sall, who spoke, and we had a very large gathering of about 1,200 people. Our founder was there, and we had, the theme was about interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal shared values. We had also another summit last November in Cape Town in South Africa, centering on the grandson of Mandela, who was our co-sponsor, and that was the theme of the summit was to honor the legacy of Nelson Mandela, who was celebrating the centenary at that time. In all these activities, we always focus on three important categories of leaders. I'm just giving you some faces here, but actually behind this there are some projects and associations by which work for the public purpose in society. Religious leaders, because they are the conscience of society, parliamentarians who represent the people and also who make the laws, and traditional rulers, because they play, particularly in Africa, they play a very important role as the custodians of land and traditions. And also they play a critical role in protecting social harmony and also in protecting the environment. So all these people, through the UPF projects, we try to empower these people by developing three projects. One is called the International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, IAPP. This is what I wrote. This is just one of this lady is the head of the parliament in South Africa, but we invited many parliamentarians. We developed this association throughout the world in many countries, including in Africa. And the second is the International Association, Interreligious Association for Peace and Development. We call it IAPD. And Sheikh Mansour, who is here, was a major person who helped us to actually organize the seminar in Dakar, together with President Macky Sall. He's a very important Murid leader. But we've worked with many also religious leaders throughout the world and throughout Africa for this interreligious dialogue and cooperation. And then the International Association of Traditional Rulers for Peace, where this king of Busoga, but you have many others, we're working to them. Basically, we bring them together to create networks so that they can work together beyond nationality. What is important is they work beyond nationality, beyond religion, beyond political affiliation, so that they can deal with issues like critical issues such as territorial disputes, religious conflicts, environmental degradation, etc., etc. So this is the purpose of these projects which we are developing all over the continent. Other projects have to do with the sustainable economic development. There's a coffee project creating some exchange of information. Some African delegations have gone to Hawaii to get some information and some, basically some exchange on how to develop the production and plantation of coffee. And also Semaru Undong, as you may know, this is an important Korean initiative from South Korea. It's actually a community development project which was the driving force behind the development of South Korea as a major power. And so South Koreans have gone around the world and taught this kind of community development project, and we are working also with them and it exists in many countries, actually in Africa too, and we are supporting these activities for community development project. Another important project, which is more like a visionary project that was started at the time of the Cape Town summit, was this Peace Road project. Initiated our founder, whom you see on the top on the picture here, in Cape Town, launched, in a sense, this International Highway for Peace project, which is a long-term project that her husband had developed and announced many years ago. And it's really the idea of to bring one world, the world into one through different roads that could bring people both culturally, economically, and so on together. And particularly creating a tunnel between, at important points, a juncture between Russia and America, and also between Korea and Japan. These are nations that used to be, in the 20th century, strong enemies, and so these tunnels have a special meaning. This is not just a dream. Our founders have made enormous effort and practical effort to promote this. And of course, it's not something that an NGO is doing alone. It has to be with many other people. But this is an important project, and symbolically, every year we mobilize young people through what we call the Peace Road project that go by bicycle, by walk, or other ways to connect nations which have a history of conflict together, to bring this idea gradually into reality. Then another important project that was developed in Africa and around the world, but particularly in Africa, this is something that Taj, our moderator, told us about: education, education of heart, education, education, education. This is one of our important projects, and we have developed several curriculums. We are organizing and teaching them together with also our pastors and other leaders.
For your education now,
Okay.
your time is over.
Okay. I just
You
finished.
could just finish in 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. The World Summit, we had recently a very important World Summit, last month, where the Summit Council for Peace was created with many world leaders. Barroso from Europe, the former president of the European Commission, was there. Many former presidents and others. You see Jerry Rawlings from Africa and many others. But one of the most important, the highlights, let's say, of this project of this summit was the SANAC Peace Prize. And the SANAC Peace Prize is a prize that was created a few years ago by our founder, and that offers $1 million every 2 years to someone who's dedicated their life either to human rights and human development, or to the protection of the environment, or to conflict and reconciliation. And today, this time, just a few weeks ago, this prize was given to 2 Africans, important. One of them is Dr. Adesina, Akinwumi Adesina. He's the president of the African Development Bank. He's done a lot of innovative agricultural projects for small farmers, and he gave a great vision for the future of Africa. And the other one I would end with her. She actually lives in this country of Austria, as I understand. This Waris Diri is, as you may know, she's a Somalian top model, and she launched this important campaign against feminine genital mutilation. And she was recognized by the UN, and she's an extraordinary woman, and she received the prize, and the First Lady of Somalia gave the congratulatory remarks to her. Okay, and that was, anyway, they gave a very great, positive, and also brilliant idea about the future of Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Santayo. I think we have to leave this room in about, 5:30. So the boss is here, and he's going to tell us to get out of here.
No, not yet.
Okay, good.
So I want to still call on Mr. Sentayo. Please, at least come here. He was always our partner from the Ethiopian side, and at least we want to have him on stage and hear at least a few words of greetings to this conference, please.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here, and the hard work this association has been doing, all of them. And we didn't believe a long time ago that Ethiopia and Eritrea would reconcile. This reconciliation is the greatest. You can't imagine, I was a post-colonial young man in pre-independent Eritrea. My teachers were Eritreans when Eritrea and Ethiopia were together. When the war broke between my teachers and my parents, you can't imagine how tragic and such the situation was. And you can't imagine how happy I am now they are reconciling, understanding each other. As a young Ethiopian, I traveled to Eritrea. I was living in the southern parts of Ethiopia, about 1,000 kilometers. And it was fantastic. And I have this emotional attachment, and these feelings are still vivid. And you can't imagine what brings us together with the Sudanese and with the Somalis. You can't imagine, from the Sudanese we learned what the communism was. And from Sudanese we learned what labor organization was, because they relatively had industries in Sudan. When I was a young man, we were against the Emperor Haile Selassie. Somalia was for us our example, because Somalia became a socialist country and developed in a very short time, having their own writings, having their own alphabets. The Somali nomad children become pilots of MiG-23, and we Ethiopians were very jealous. We said, no, come on. If you took away the way Somalia did, we'll be developing. It was Emperor Haile Selassie who put us down. And you can't imagine how disappointed I was then when Ethiopia and Eritrea started to kill each other, and disillusioned. And this disillusion has gone away now. I'm thinking positively. I'm very proud and happy that these two governments have succeeded. The ruling elite have succeeded to bring peace to the country, and I hope the Ethiopian and Eritrean people will come together as brothers and friends. And with Somalis, what brings us together, you people may not know, Ethiopia has above 80 ethnic groups, and Somalis belong to the third biggest ethnic group in Ethiopia. And you can't imagine, it's not that Somalis are, and that's why, and I say, I don't know, I'm very critical about federation. We have, unfortunately, in Ethiopia, ethnic federation. Austria is federal state because it speaks the same language. Germany is federal state, it speaks the same language. Great Britain is not federal state. France is not federal state. Italy is not federal state. So we should really think of that. And our vision was to develop Africa in a very short time. But unfortunately, I think somebody said, who went away, says, is Africa is a failed state or a failing state? It's unfortunate. History tells us we were relatively economically better developed than supposedly South Korea, where the Southern Koreans are highly advanced. What's wrong with Africa? And now, and I used to make a joke, not a joke, but we used to dance before the Europeans during colonial time. Because they come and say, Africa, dance, and we show them our local dances. Now we are dancing before the Chinese. and this is a story which I hope it's not repeating. But once and for all that we have reconciled now with our brothers Eritreans and with Somalis and Djiboutians and Sudanese South and North and with Kenyans, and I hope we have a positive, a good future. And thank you very much for you guys attending us. Thank you.
It can't be more appropriate to finish this session than somebody from Ethiopia come and speak to us. Thank you very much, sir.
So we arrived at the conclusion of our conference, and we thought, because this conference was only possible because two people met and decided to make peace with each other, the president of Ethiopia and Eritrea, that we sent them a letter of appreciation from this conference. And actually, I wanted to ask a lady to read it, because there were no ladies on stage. So I want to, and it, no, we had too many Sudanese already. So, you want to read it? This is Mrs. Camilla Habsburg, so it's a prominent voice from the old Europe, at least. Yeah.
So, this letter of appreciation The leaders of Ethiopia and Eritrea on July 9th, 2018, signed a declaration ending the state of war between the two countries. The summit between Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki and Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in the Eritrean capital, Asmara, marked the first time that the neighboring heads of a state met in nearly 2 decades. This was a starting point of meetings that have created new relationships among Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, South Sudan, and Sudan. The participants of the conference, Perspectives for Sustainable Peace and Development in the Horn of Africa, which took place on March 20th, 2019, in the Vienna International Center, United Nations, want to express their gratitude for the courage and vision that the political leaders of the Horn of Africa nations are showing in order to make a new start toward peace and mutual prosperity. This serves as an example for the whole African continent and for the world.
So, these words conclude our conference, and we will send this letter of appreciation through the missions, and I will give it to them afterwards, otherwise it becomes, I give it to Mr. Hamdan, and then also we have one letter for the President of Ethiopia, and we will hand it over also to the representative here later. So.